because I wanted to show people, no matter how much physical, emotional, psychological, mental pain that you're in, you can get through it if you just keep going. No matter how much it hurts, no matter how difficult it feels at that moment in time. And trust me, when I had them hog burns or cracked ribs, I did not want to run 30 plus miles each day, day after day. But I did it not because I was trying to be tough or anything, but I just wanted to show people that you can get through it. And I've always lived off a mantra on my run. I think I said it probably dozens of times every day to get myself through, and it was pain is temporary and pride is forever. And that pain will subside. In like your memory probably won't even remember the physical what it even felt like, but you will always remember getting through that moment in time, and that's something that you can be proud of.
Paul, how are we?
Hi, yeah, I'm well, thanks. Good to see you.
No, you too. Thank you for being here. So, gonna rewind a bit because the big hairy scary run that you just completed is something we're gonna come on to. But we're gonna start a little bit earlier, and we're gonna ask what drew you to the military in the first place.
I joined the army when I was 16 years old, and I think I never had any friends or family, or knew anyone that was in the armed forces. But I remember watching a program. I think it was like a Royal Marine Commando program, and I was like 8 years old on TV. And just watching all these guys going, pushing themselves through all sorts of hard-dress conditions and being part of a group and getting through stuff together as a team. And I think even at a young age, I like the thought of that. I used to watch war movies and envisage myself on the battlefield and whatever it may be. And it's just something that stuck with me for a very long time. And then when I was 16 years old, I decided to give it a go and join the army and see where it took me.
How did you adjust to that environment? Because it's not like the TV, it's not like the movies that you just referred to, is it? Was it a shock? Was it something you adjusted to easily? Or did you just have to figure out as you went?
To be completely honest, for me, I went in with a mindset of it being a lot more tougher than it was. And I think that's because of the TV and because of Hollywood and entertainment programs. They try to make things out like they're a lot worse than what they are. So for me, it wasn't nowhere near as terrifying or as hard as I thought it was going to be. In fact, it's a family, it's a group of people that work together and work hard, and they get each other through the highs and the lows, which is a fantastic thing. But for me personally, I didn't find it difficult to adjust. I loved being away from home and being an independent person and being part of a new team and a new group of people. But there are certainly lots of people that struggle initially, especially initially. It's a complete culture shock, especially I'd say those people who have been looked after very well by their parents, shall we say, mollycoddled. They do find it difficult to look after themselves because you are expected to look after yourself. It's a normal trait. If you can't look after yourself, how are you going to look after the person next to you? And some people do struggle initially with that, but after time, just like anything in life, people do adjust.
Did you feel like you had to grow up very, very quickly?
I think the armed forces is a strange place because you grow up very quickly. You do. You're in a real man's environment, doing seriously dangerous stuff. Even if not on a battlefield, you're still training with live rounds, just still machine guns going off over you. You're still firing rockets. All sorts of stuff's going on, and you've got to be extremely careful. That the tanks and machinery that we use are heavy stuff, and things go wrong all the time. So you have to grow up. But I always say that the army is a bit of a Peter Pan, a bit of a Lost Boys thing. People, they grow up, but they never really grow up because everyone's so childish and silly and, always having banter and playing silly pranks on each other. So it's a bit of a two-sided thing there.
Do you want to talk us through your operational career? Because you were 18 years with the British Army, weren't you, all in all? So there's obviously a lot to unpack there. But joined at 16, how did things develop in terms of your career? What were the stages and the levels that you went through?
So I joined the Household Cavalry Regiment, the Blues and Royals, which is the same regiment as Prince William, Prince Harry also joined at the same time as me. It's a fantastic regiment. and I also was part of another unit called Brigade Reconnaissance Force, which I done 4 tours in Afghanistan and Iraq with, and I done one with my parent unit, Household Cavalry Regiment. I done my first tour when I was 20 years old as a gunner. We were the first into Helmand province in Afghanistan, so we were the ones that were chasing out the Taliban that had completely taken over the area. It was just constant fighting all the time. And if I'm being completely honest, I loved it. It was exactly what we signed up to do. We were definitely fighting the bad guys and helping the local people that had been overrun, and the sorts of things that we'd done and seen was incredible, and that certainly made a lot of people grow up very quickly. And then over the upcoming 16 more years, I done another 4 more tours, but I also done lots of sports. I was part of the Nordic ski team, alpine ski team, rugby team, football team, tug of war, bodybuilding, anything you can think of, name it, I done it. So, the Armed Forces is fantastic for just supplying you with real hard graft on the battlefield, but also letting you let your hair down and go and enjoy sports or whatever your hobby may be.
Which ultimately gave you the background that's put you in the position you are today, essentially, isn't it? Because before we get on to what you ultimately did with all that sporting background, how did you manage your exit from the military? Because it's a big challenge for everyone, isn't it? I've had people on here that have spoken about how they found it really challenging. Some people that were very proactive, brought in mentors and gave themselves a real clear runway to exit. But it's a challenge for a lot of guys because there's an identity loss. And if you were there for 18 years, I can imagine you really had to wrestle with who you were and what you were going to be when you left. So do you want to just talk us through how you managed that exit?
I think my exit genuinely was very different from a lot of people's. I left with a real purpose on two sides. One, I was struggling with my mental health anyway, so for me being in that environment, an environment that I still love, I wish I was still there, but it wasn't good for me, and a lot of people could see it, I could see it, doctors could see it, and ultimately it was the doctor's choices to say, look, we don't believe that you're safe in this environment for yourself and other people, which was probably true, because after my 5th tour of Afghanistan, I suffered really, really badly with paranoia, which then led to anxiety, which led to depression and all sorts of problems. But also on the other side of that, I lost, by this point, 11 friends who had unfortunately taken their lives in a 3-year period. So where I was in a bad place, I managed to take myself away and learn multiple different ways and how I can improve my day-to-day life to change my negative mindset into a much more positive mindset. And I've done that, and I've done it positively, and it worked. And I wanted to help more people. So I was not only leaving because the environment wasn't good for me anymore, but I was also leaving with a purpose of trying to help as many people as possible, and with the vision of starting up a charity and a retreat where people can go to and just learn different ways and how they can improve their own mental resilience and mental strength.
11 friends in a short period of time is horrifying, and very, very sorry to hear that. I know it's something that's a huge driver for you now, but did that make your paranoia worse? Did you become fearful that you might be like them? Was there a fear that you had to get out because you almost saw what potentially lay at the other end of the way that you were feeling? Was that a big driver for you?
Yeah, definitely. I by this point I'd probably done, I think, 15, 16 years in the army. I was a staff sergeant. I'd done 5 tours. Done pretty much every course you could think of. I was on a roll. I was doing really well. I was above where I should have been in my career. I felt confident. I felt competent. But then all of a sudden, paranoia hit me. It completely took over my life. I got in quite a lot of trouble because of it. I couldn't leave the house. I didn't want to leave the house. I started having all sorts of side effects through the paranoia, where I was hearing noises. I thought I was going mad, and then all of a sudden my friends started taking their lives, and my anxiety was getting a lot worse. I didn't want to go out anywhere, so I stayed in my room pretty much all the time, which led to extreme depression, and led to thoughts of myself not wanting to be here anymore, because all of a sudden I've gone from this person who I highly respected myself to this person who I didn't even recognise, and very confused with the emotions and feelings that I was having. And then all of a sudden, my friends who I also respected very highly were taking their lives, and I was thinking, wow, well, if they're doing it, surely this is where I'm going. I could feel myself. I mean, I'm not in a good place, and I'm sure they weren't. And it was certainly thoughts that I had in my head on a daily basis. And my 11th friend who took his life, unfortunately, done it outside my door. So when I opened my door, I found him hanging. So I was like, right, this is it. I'm at a crossroads now. I either do something drastic to improve my mental well-being, or do something drastic where I'm probably going to be friend number 12. And thankfully, I decided I had the strength in me to take the path where I decided to try and take action into my own hands and change my own mental well-being.
Incredible that you managed to do so, because I can't even begin to imagine how difficult that situation was, and no amount of emotional experience and operational experience can prepare you for the sort of horror of experiencing that. So thank you for sharing that with us first and foremost. But secondly, I think it's important to highlight something you said there from a personal point of view, because it comes back to the sort of hyper-masculine sense of self that we have. Because when I was suffering with depression and ultimately a suicide attempt, the real thing for me was not being able to recognise the version of myself that I was versus the expectations and the vision for myself that I had. Just like you said there were these people that you thought were X, Y, or Z that you looked up to. You thought you were in that category, and then all of a sudden you didn't feel like that because you felt a certain way. Why do I feel like this? I shouldn't feel like this. This isn't who I am. Therefore, I'm a failure. What do I do now? Those sort of feelings spiral out of control, don't they? And incredible you managed to turn that into something so positive. But given the operational experience you've had, I can imagine that was a big driver for the paranoia, a big driver for the anxiety that led to depression. But looking back now, what were the key moments along the way? Were there any sort of operational moments that really stick in your head as lessons learned, or moments that really defined you as a character, or anything that just sort of stuck up with the Hollywood element of the army? Were there any things that you really want to highlight as key development moments for you, formative moments that have made you the person you are now?
Yeah, I think there's probably hundreds and hundreds of occasions in the 3.5 years that I spent in Afghanistan and Iraq on the front line, which define me and make me the person I am. I think there were two key moments that really drove me to having quite high mental resilience, but also were probably the factors towards my paranoia. And the first one, when I was 20, when what I mentioned earlier, the first tour I done back in 2006, I was in a very big ambush, completely unexpected at the time, and two of our vehicles got blown up. My vehicle got blown up with rocket-propelled grenades, and the one behind us got blown up with improvised explosive devices. And only 3 out of everyone that was involved of us survived it. Everyone else had died there and then. And everyone had also, the remaining vehicles had left us because they thought that we were all dead. Like they couldn't see any way that anyone survived that. But there were 3 of us, and there were probably I think there were between something like 70 to 100 Taliban that were chasing us down, and we had to fight them off as we got out of the ambush. So that was my first real look into, oh right, okay, I'm gonna die sort of thing, and having to fight my way out and surviving it. And I also got blown up again, I think 3 tours later, where again I came out completely unscathed where other people didn't. And I think, yeah, them 2 occasions, being blown up and surviving, were I wouldn't say I don't feel guilty because other people didn't, but I'd say I feel very grateful, and I like to think that very lucky, and it's something that I now look at as to being grateful to be in a position now to still be alive and to help other people. But yeah, there's so many moments in the career and being on a battlefield. I think you just have to, the training you go through is so extreme, and then being on the battlefield itself it's real. You can't just go, I don't like this anymore, time out, I'm out. You're in that position, you're in there, and you have to get on with it. And I think that is something that really strengthens your mindset, just like being, like in being in normal life now. If people are struggling, it's like, you can't just tap out. You got to find another way to push through and carry on with it.
Do you think that's partly why, especially from a military point of view, there is such a resistance to talking about things when somebody feels like their mental health is suffering? Because I think it was Foxy that said it when he first started talking about how he felt was having lived through battlefields, having seen IEDs go off, having lost friends, having lost brothers, as he called it. It was a case of when he started worrying about the way he was feeling in his own head, it just seemed so pale in significance to the stuff that everybody around him had experienced. Do you think that is a culture that still exists within the military that is ultimately the cause of why you've unfortunately lost so many of your friends? Is it something that's improving, or have you decided that it's up to you, hence why you've taken on the things that you have?
So to answer the first question, I think in the military people are talking about stuff a lot more, which is really good. But there is still a problem with people coming forward, and I think it's more of a pride thing, but also a bit like you say what Foxy said, people compare themselves too much to other people, and especially in the armed forces where people that have either lost their lives, or they've lost limbs, or or they're suffering through other physical or mental abilities. Someone might not feel good, and they haven't been feeling good for quite some time, and they go, well, who am I to say anything, because Soldier X has 2 legs missing, so I don't even compare to him. So people are comparing themselves too much to other people, which they shouldn't be. Everyone has the right to feel a certain way. Everyone has the right to have emotions and feelings. You don't have to have a physical or obvious a disability to be suffering. So I think that's the first one in the armed forces. But also, people don't. I hear this a lot. People say, well, why didn't you go and get help 6 weeks ago? You've left it way too late now. You're now in a place where you need to fit significant help. Where if you would have said something 6 weeks ago, you could have got better help. And quite often people say, well, I didn't want to take a place away from someone else. I know that places are limited, and also I know that there was an exercise coming up, and I was the only one that could do a certain thing. And so there's a lot of guilt in people's heads, and a lot of loyalty as well towards their regiment or corps, whatever they're in. So there is that, and I think there needs to be more of a culture to teach people that it's okay to just get help in the early stages, or even better than that, when you're in a good mindset, learn different methods that can help you with your positive mindset that you then use on a daily basis that keeps you in a good state, a frame of mind. Or when you do come to a stage in life where you are struggling, you can now implement these different techniques and methods that are going to make you feel better.
This is where I think society can learn an awful lot from the military, because, especially in a corporate setting, because that resistance that you just referred to there, the fear that I'm going to keep suffering because I need to do my job, is actually inhibiting from doing your job as effectively as you are able to do so, isn't it? Because if you go into a war zone and you are not 100% in the head, and you know that, you are putting the person next to you at risk. Whereas if you'd actually acknowledged, done the reps, done the work beforehand to try and alleviate that, then you would be a more reliable operator. In the same way, in a workplace, it's why nipping things in the bud and making sure that cultures are working with their employees rather than working against them will actually make more productive and therefore more profitable employees. So I think the premise of everything you just covered there is that the earlier we can take control of these things, the better. And that's why it's so important to have conversations like this one, and to raise awareness in the ways that you have done, to actually bring this to the forefront of people's minds. So it's prevention, not cure, ultimately, isn't it? Which leads us quite nicely on to, you've recently ran 5,000 miles around the coastline of the UK. Why?
Yeah, it just popped out for a pint of milk, as they always say, and kept going.
Got lost, yeah.
Got lost, yeah. Myself and 3 others, we set up a charity called Head Up Charity, and we're developing a 7-day positive mindset retreat for anyone in the armed forces and veterans from any service, including reservists. So it's over 5 million people in the UK that can use our services completely for free. It doesn't matter what sort of mindset you're in. You can be in the best mindset or the worst mindset. we want to give these teachings to as many people as possible. And all they do, they come down to the retreat for 7 days, completely for free, and they learn multiple different things from nutrition, sleep cycles, hormones, animal therapy, music therapy, ecotherapy, cold water therapies, journaling, affirmations, and stoicism, and more. And all it's to do is give them awareness and understanding and different things, how they can improve their mindset. So we're in a 2-year fundraising and brand awareness stage, and we said, look, how are we going to let the nation know who we are? One, so that people know to come and use our services once we open the doors. Two, to get some fundraisers and get our name out there. We want to. We're after quite a bit of money, so we're going to go to grant givers in 8-9 months' time and ask for quite a lot of money. But what we want to do is we want them to hear about us before we go and see them, so that they go, yeah, we've heard of Head Up. So we were like, well, we've all got to do something big. Let's do something. Let's put ourselves out there. Let's show people the passion we got. Let's lead by example. We're asking other people to fundraise for us, so let's show them that we're willing to put ourselves on the line as well. So I put my hand up first. I said, look, I'm going to do something. The armed forces is mainly made up of Northern Ireland, Scotland, Wales and England. What if I ran all around the circumference of these countries and speaking to different people, finding out what's working for them, what's not, giving talks, trying to get some awareness and hopefully get some media attention as well and get the name out there as much as possible. So the other three said, look, that's pretty mad. Like, why don't you just run up and down the country or something? But I was like, no, I'm going to give it a go. So I said, well, I'm going to run 15 miles a day. And then when I plotted the route out there, it was a year and a half. And I was like, there's no way I'm going out for a year and a half. So I've redone it so that on average I was running 30 miles a day. And it took me 7 months. So I started on the 1st of March 2022, and I finished on the 1st of October 2022, and I ran on average 29.6 miles a day, but it was never exactly that. It was I think the shortest day was 18 miles and the longest was 42, and that was 6 days a week with all my kit on me. So I had 10 kilogram bag on me, and I was just running from place to place, and then just staying with random people, anyone that would put me up. So I was very lucky to stay with everyone from lords, MPs, teachers, veterans of all sorts, fishermen, just a whole wide range of people, and it was fantastic. And I gave talks, and I had business meetings. I had quite a lot of media attention from national and local media platforms. So and it went really well.
Fantastic. So I think there's two things I want to dive into the stats on a little bit. First of all, if you're happy to share, is just because I think people are a little bit, not ignorant, but a little bit naive to the reality of actually what it takes to run a charity and actually create these things. So you've said that you're after quite a bit of money, which means that you need to run the charity like a business. There are things that you need to fund, there's things that you need to create, there are services you want to provide, which requires cash and people and resource to execute it. So just so people are aware, once they hear about what you're doing and they know the scale of what you're hoping to achieve, what are the sort of main performance indicators, main numbers that you're working towards to get this off the ground? Because a lot of people will think, oh, creating a holistic retreat, that'd be fantastic. But what does it actually take to create that? What are the figures that you're working towards?
So we have a rather large business plan where we've put the figures together to cover £3 million, which will be the development of the retreat, which will belong to Head Up Charity, so it can't be taken away. We'll also want to be as eco-friendly as possible, which also means that we can be as self-sustaining as possible as well, which will save us money in the long run. So that's what everything we do is trying to save money and also trying to do things the right way. £3 million also covers 2 years running costs, and that's wages. That's for the people that are teaching, the fundraising staff, administration staff. So yeah, and a lot of that can come from grants, but we need to try and raise as much money as possible from the general public, from businesses, from organisations. A lot of businesses and organisations, depending on their size, they don't have to give tax. They have a thing called tax relief where they can give it to charities instead, give their tax to charities instead. That's how the government get away from not really giving much money out to charities, because they say, well, you can take it from businesses' tax. So that's one of the big things that we're trying to do, is get as many businesses and organisations to give us a percentage of their tax to keep us up and running. And that's what a lot of charities do. However, there are, I can't remember the stats, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of charities in the UK, and most of the big charities get their business tax. So we've got to try and persuade businesses why we're worthy of a percentage of their tax relief, which is one of the reasons why we're doing these big events as well. But it does take a lot. There's a lot of red tape, as you can only imagine, which there should be. A lot of hurdles to get over. But yeah, we're on the right track, but there's still a long way to go. But yeah.
No, I just wanted to focus on that because it's great to get the context for what you're hoping to create, and actually then showing that you've got some skin in the game. But quite literally, I'm sure there is some of your skin left in blisters all over the UK at this point. So 5,000 miles. Let's focus on what that involves. So it was 191 marathons, equivalent of in 218 days total, wasn't it? So 5,000 miles is an incomprehensible distance. I'm sure you've got lots of ways of contextualizing that. Is that over the Atlantic? Is it, again, I haven't really thought about how quite far in a straight line that is, but elevation wise as well, just break down for us what are the big scary numbers that came with this.
Oh yeah, I wish I'd had a piece of paper in front of me to tell you. I can't remember what they all are, but I think the elevation was something like over 300,000 foot of elevation, which I think was something like...
It's about 100,000 metres, just under, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, someone said something...
3,000 feet is 908 metres, so if somebody better at maths than I can figure this out in the background, then great. It's a lot.
It's a lot. Someone said it was... I think it's true. I'll have to look into it. Someone said it was like 12 and a half Everests.
Yeah, I can figure that out now, actually. 8848 times 12.5. Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah, about 12 Everest. Yeah, which is anything that you can say several Everests is plenty, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it. And especially when you're looking at doing it day after day after day, and then I think distance-wise, we worked out it being something like 44,000 laps around a running track. It was fantastic. I had over 700 people join me running, which really helped. So the shortest distance was something like 100 metres. A lady who couldn't run, she just wanted to be part of it. So she
fantastic.
Yeah, I know. It was so good. She was like, I can't run, but I just want to do it as much as I can. And she got about 100 metres and was like, that's me. And I was like, oh, amazing. Thank you for being part of this. And the longest someone stayed with me was for 6 days, which is really nice of them. And then... Yes, like I say, I stayed with over 200 different people, gave talks to schools, universities, armed forces establishments, had lots and lots of business meetings with different people, trying to get them involved with the charity, speaking to other charities as well, because we want to be involved with them. So there was just so much to this. But there was lots and lots of adversities on the run, as you can only imagine. Snow blizzards, heavy wind, heavy rain, fields which just covered with mud, heat waves. I cracked 2 ribs along the way. I got bitten by an adder.
I think it's important. It's important to cut you off here and note that you cracked the 2 ribs slipping in the shower, didn't you?
Yeah. Thanks for letting everyone know.
I just thought it's always the way. I was speaking to somebody at the Gymshark store opening the other day who's about to step on stage at the Olympia level bodybuilding, and he's done his ACL on a motocross bike, not in the gym. So just say it's never doing the thing that you're doing; it's always something else, isn't it?
It always is, yeah. But I would have certainly said to him, so close to an event, I probably wouldn't be on a motocross. But I think we all have to wash though, don't we? So I think I can get away. He makes me look a bit good on that. But yeah, I slipped in the shower, cracked 2 ribs. It was very, very uncomfortable for about 3 or 4 weeks. But I'm happy to say I carried on each day. In Essex, I got bitten by an adder, which a lot of people think is really bad. I would have thought it would be bad, but it wasn't too bad. My leg went very bruised and dried and flaky. And all that happened was later that evening, I just felt very tired because my body was fighting the venom, and I had a good night's sleep, to be honest, and woke up ready to go the next morning. So if anyone can't sleep, there you go, there's your cure.
Problem solved.
And then I think the worst adversity I had throughout the run, I don't know if you ever heard of hogweeds, giant hogweed.
Yeah.
I'd never heard of them, and I ended up going through a field full of giant hogweeds, burnt my legs, they all blistered up. It was horrendous, and the only way I can describe it is if you've ever put your hand over a candle or burning flame and it's just got too much and you have to put it away. That pain there is what them hogweed burns felt like for 36 hours, and you just can't get away from it, and it's just you're stuck there.
So I assume that was no sleep. You couldn't focus on anything. Running was agony. Did you take that 36 hours off? Did you have to keep moving to distract yourself? How did you cope with that? Because that must have been awful.
It was worse than cracked ribs, which is hard to imagine. Just because the pain, my everything in my body was just drained and focused on the legs, and I'd gone completely white throughout the whole time. But I did carry on. I said from the very beginning of my run, I don't want to miss 1 mile or 1 day, no matter what the adversity, unless it's I broke on my leg or back, where I physically can't move. But if I can still physically move, I want to get through it. And the reason why I wanted to is because I wanted to show people, no matter how much physical, emotional, psychological, mental pain that you're in, you can get through it if you just keep going, no matter how much it hurts, no matter how difficult it feels at that moment in time. And trust me, when I had them hogweed burns or cracked ribs, I did not want to run 30 plus miles each day, day after day. But I did it not because I was trying to be tough or anything, but I just wanted to show people that you can get through it. And I've always lived off a mantra on my run. I think I said it probably dozens of times every day to get myself through, and it was pain is temporary and pride is forever. And that pain will subside. Your memory probably won't even remember the physical, what it even felt like, but you will always remember getting through that moment in time, and that's something that you can be proud of.
100%. And you've got conversations like this, media, to remind yourself if you ever forget about that pride, because I have it with some big events I've completed and things over the years. It can easily seem like a dream or something that kind of you just thought about, and the significance of it in the grand scheme of things is easy to forget about. But I think that's why having smartphones in our pockets and things is fantastic for all that, because you can look back and be like, oh yeah, I did do that, brilliant.
Yeah, and anyone can do it. You don't have to do a 5,000-mile run.
No,
my sister.
It's not a recommendation GPs are giving out, that's for sure.
No, definitely not. I mean, there were some people that joined me on my run who had never hardly ran before, and they completed a 5-kilometre run. And it was huge for them. And, even to this day, they're like, I can't believe I ran 5 kilometres with you. And I'd certainly say for some people, to run 5 kilometres was a bigger achievement than me running 5,000 miles. Because it's something that I've done my whole life running. And this is something that are completely new to them. It's something that they never felt was ever possible. And it doesn't matter what the achievement is. It doesn't even have to be a physical achievement. It could just sometimes be getting out of bed, or cleaning the house, or being outside, or talking to someone new, getting outside your comfort zone, whatever it is, it's an achievement, and it's something that you can bank that achievement and bank that pride forever.
One step forwards for anyone is as valuable for one person as it is the next, but it's the relative value of that step forwards that I think matters. And we've spoken a lot about the physical adversity you faced along the way, but I do want to touch on the mental adversity, but specifically within the context of the fact that within the first 3 months of the event, with the first 3 months of the 5,000 miles, you lost another 3 friends to suicide along the way, didn't you? So, without wanting to in any way sort of focus on the memory in a positive way as much as we can, but for you that must have been exceptionally difficult to have faith in what you were doing was having the impact that you wanted it to, because along the way you were still losing friends. Because I've been very open about my mental health and the struggles that I've had. So whenever I feel or hear that people close to me aren't open with me about it, I feel like I haven't done enough, which isn't the case, because I know firsthand how difficult it can be to talk about these things, so it would be wrong of me to feel that way. But when you're putting your heart and soul into these events and the feedback you're getting isn't what you were necessarily hoping for, that must have been really, really tough for you to get up the following morning and think this is all worth it.
Yeah, I mean, it's very tough to lose a friend from anything, whether that be from the armed forces side on the battlefield, whether it be to cancer, whether it be run over, whether it be to anything, or in this case, whether it be to suicide, which is very sad, because it leaves a lot of unanswered questions and a lot of what ifs with a lot of people, or if onlys. So it was very difficult, and it was something that I used it as motivation to keep going, because the thing is, we haven't got our retreat up and running yet. We're still in a 2-year sort of fundraising and brand awareness stage. We're in the second year of it now, so we're hoping to have the doors open late 2023. So for us and for me, it was very much a case of, this is such horrible news, it's terrible, but I've got to keep going each day. This retreat needs to happen. I'm not saying it's going to save every single person's life, but we really feel strongly that it's going to help make lots of people's lives prosperous, and even save people's lives. I really do believe it. It's already saved my life. The way that the teachings that we're going to teach, and I've already been sharing it with hundreds of other people, and lots of positive feedback from the teachings. And I certainly use it as a driver. I use it as a drive to keep going, keep pushing through each day. But yeah, it's so sad to lose one friend to suicide. I've never even known of anyone to have taken their own lives by the age I was like 27, 28, and I'm 36 now. So through the first 20 years of my life, it was just something that I'd heard of, had happened to people before, and now within an 8-year period, it's actually 15 friends that I've now lost to suicide, which is just so bad. It's a horrible thing, and more and more needs to be done. There's some very simple and effective techniques and methods out there that can help people, and a lot of people are just not aware of them. And it's something that we want to teach. Sometimes people just need a bit of a guiding, helping hand, and that's what we want to be, to put people onto the right track where they can then help themselves.
I think it's important to help people understand how much power they have within themselves to tackle these things as well, because in the UK especially, we can point fingers at, the NHS waiting lists are 9 months, I'm doomed, I can't do anything, or the facilities at my workplace aren't what they need to be, or X, Y, Z. It's easy to point fingers, but there's so many resources out there through Samaritans, through Movember, through Calm, that we can access. It might not be the person in our household because we don't feel comfortable talking to them, but there are resources out there so that anyone and everyone within the UK does have access to someone and something to take, as we've said, that one step forwards. But there is so much that can be done in terms of self-awareness, understanding, acknowledging how we respond to certain things in our day-to-day life that can keep our mental health more level. Because I very much view it as a sliding scale from healthy to unhealthy, as you would with physical health. Some of us are more volatile to sort of swaying left to right. I put myself in that category. I'm quite an intense bloke. I'm quite emotionally erratic when it comes to the way that I sort of go all in on things, because that's quite high risk, which means I might go the other way. I can assume you're the same. You've ran 5,000 miles around the UK. That's quite high risk. That's something that means that you'll have a big come down. You'll have a period of reflection afterwards that must have been quite difficult. But some people will fortunately spend most of their lives bang in the middle of that sliding scale, and they're the ones with a lot of power to help those that are a little bit more erratic. Some of us might spend some more time on the unhealthy side, but it might be because we're perpetuating negative behavioural patterns that are making us feel that way, which means that there's things that we can do, small things day to day, that can make a huge impact. Some of the things you mentioned, Ari, the retreat before, understanding your circadian rhythm, understanding sleep patterns, understanding the impact of alcohol, understanding how important social interaction can be, understanding how powerful playing five-a-side on a Wednesday night can be. It's not in the way of you getting home to watch TV. It's the best thing you can do that week. These sorts of things that so often it's easy to forget about in the busyness of work, family, paying bills, and all the stuff that we all need to deal with, isn't it? So it sounds like the really holistic methodology you're putting together at the retreat is something that people will really take a lot from. But for you personally, what have been the things that have helped you manage your own mental health coming back from the 5,000 miles? Because for 218 days, your job was to keep moving forwards. You're now back in London, building a business, trying to generate fundraise, awareness, all these things that are not putting one foot in, I mean, it is metaphorically putting one foot in front of the other, but you're not getting up every day and running around the coastline anymore. So how have you been managing your mental health amidst the recovery phase of such a big psychological and physical demand?
Yeah, it's a very good question, and I think the first part to that answer is I started handling it before I'd finished my run. So with about 4 to 6 weeks prior to my run, I was psychologically preparing myself, saying, right, I'm coming to the end of the run. I know that you can beat a lot of psychologists, psychiatric practitioners were telling me, be very careful. You can get a really bad come down. Some people struggle, not just because you've come to an end of a challenge, you don't know what you're going to do next, but because of the how intense my hormones were reacting each day, and my body would be searching for that, or they're dependent on these high levels of dopamine and adrenaline that I use every single day, and all of a sudden it's going to be a crash. So I was aware of this. So it was a case of tapering my running down, but also just switching my focus from the run onto something else, but keeping that high level of energy. And the retreat or the charity has certainly been that. I've had quite a lot of media attention, so I've had a few award ceremonies, I've had quite a lot of interviews and different things going on, and that's now starting to taper down as well now, which is nice, because that kept the energy quite high, but it's nice to just settle down from all that attention a little bit. It's not really in my nature to have so much attention, but it is good for the charity and it's good for recognition. But I've just started back at a gym, so I think I joined it 4 days ago, and I've just done my 4th session, so I've been going every day since, and going to the gym was something that I really enjoyed doing before I started running. I haven't been to the gym for probably 18 months because of the amount of running I've been doing, so actually getting back into that has been really nice. Going for small runs, but also just being around people as well, because I've spent the last 7 months being around so many people, like thousands of people. I've never seen so many people in my life. And I think being in London really helps, because you only got to walk outside the street and you're I don't know, 5 minutes down the road and you probably pass a few hundred people. So that does help. So not being isolated helps. Having a few different social events to go to helps. I think just looking at trying not to get too absorbed in. A lot of people say, "Oh, you can let your hair down now. You can just go out and get drunk and eat what you want." And actually, we all know that's probably not the right thing to do. It's not gonna, let the hair down to an extent, but let's not kick the arse out of it.
Yeah, it's find the balance, because again, I've been since September the 10th for the double Ironman I did then. It was a case of you've worked hard enough to sort of warrant, I feel like a pizza tonight, I'll have a pizza tonight, I might have a couple of beers the weekend, but going out on a 4-day bender and abandoning all the habits that keep you happy and healthy, you don't want to go that far down the line. So I agree, don't kick the arse out of it, but be proud of it. As you said, pride is forever, so use that pride, bathe in the pride, enjoy the time that you've sort of earned to be able to enjoy these things, but most importantly, make sure that you are not mimicking, but rechanneling, reframing the intensity of what you were doing before. This goes for anyone. If you've just come out of a really big project with work, a big 3-month consultancy project, and then it's done, that might be a time for some beers with the team, but it's not then an opportunity for you to sort of just sit back, because you'll feel miserable sitting back, because you've got used to doing that for 3 months, and that's what makes you tick. So it's just being conscious of these things, isn't it? And it sounds like you very much are, which is great to hear. So thank you very much, Paul. Really enjoyed that. Where is the best place for people to find you and find out more about Head Up, most importantly?
So if you Googled Head Up Charity, you should see a whole lot of stuff come up. If you Googled Paul Minter, again, you'll see quite a lot of articles about me on Google. We have a website. It's head-up.org.uk. It has everything on there, from promo videos to brochures, which tells you exactly what we're going to be doing. It has quite a few of the teachers on there as well, if you want to look into that. We also have an app which has the 8 pillars of life that you can follow on a daily basis, and you can find a link for that on the website. We've got email addresses. You can find out who we are if you want to potentially want to fundraise or donate. All the links are on the website. We're also on all the social media pages. So again, just type in Head Up Charity, and then my name is Paul Minter. I think it's Paul Minter UK Run on Instagram and Facebook. So yeah, it'd be good to, if anyone wants to get involved in any way whatsoever, just send us an email and get in touch, and it'd be great to hear from you.
No, fantastic. Thank you again, Paul, and I look forward to seeing what's next.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. It's been great to talk to you.